Well, we have maybe one of the biggest leak videos I have made in some time. If you guys remember, a while back, Pokemon Company slash Nintendo were hacked. And we're not talking about the Giga Leak hack. No, no, no. This is the hack referred to as the Terra Leak that gave us a ton of information on current and upcoming Pokemon projects. This is how we learned that Generation 10 of Pokemon is dropping next year, presumably for the holidays. So, pretty interesting. This is also where we learned that, yeah, Legend ZA may have actually been meant to come out last year. So, quite fascinating. But here's the thing. Some of the biggest things from the Terra leak weren't actually leaked for a while. There were some documents that weren't put out publicly for people to look at. And, because of that, I kind of forgot about it. Well, those documents have resurfaced today. They've gotten in the hands of journalists and other people out there. And now things are leaking like crazy about the future of Pokemon, including Gen 10, including Generation 11 and when that's coming out, and just so much more information. Now, I want to warn you before we dive into this that this entire video can be classified as spoilers. I don't want to sit here, I was trying to debate on how to cover this and how to classify the spoilers. And you know what? Screw it. If you're here, I'm guessing you want to see this stuff. If you don't, you don't. There's information in here, including where Generation 10 is taking place. Few little minor, I would call them minor, but scant story details for the game as well. Nothing crazy. Again, we're just covering this stuff. That includes a screenshot, by the way. Yeah, we have our first look at Gen 10. So, guys, this is pretty crazy. Again, spoiler. You don't have to tune in if you don't want to. But we got a deep dive on Pokemon here. Bunch of Pokemon leaks. That said, before we do, I want to remind you, we have a couple giveaways going on. One for 3 copies of Age of Imprisonment, another for 5 copies of Kirby Air Riders. Or to enter, just head on to the link down in the pinned comment or in the description. Let's get to the first big part of this leak today. Generation 10. So we're getting this all from Universal Nintendo, who did a great job summarizing all this and double verifying it by checking the files himself. The 10th generation Pokemon game could be set in Asia. So despite prior reports saying Greece, it looks like Asia is the way it's going to be and will bring a world in constant change. So we scroll down here. It says, according to a leaked internal Game Freak documents via the Terra leak dated to 2020, the project identified as Gen 10 or Gaia corresponds to the 10th mainline generation of Pokemon, initially scheduled for release in 2025, but now only expected to arrive sometime in 2026 onwards. The title appears in the company's development plans with an estimated budget of 3 billion yen, which is almost $20 million, and a target of 15 million copies sold. According to the files, the game is being developed only for the Nintendo Switch 2, describing the documents as a new console released in 2025 and will feature 2 versions maintaining the series' traditional format. Now, the Asian scenery and dynamic nature. It is in planning slides, Game Freak details that the next generation will be primarily inspired by Asia, with an emphasis on tropical regions like Indonesia. The document states the game will be set in Asia, Indonesia. We want to avoid Europe, North America, and Japan, as the worlds in those regions already resemble previous titles. The game's environment is described as a constantly changing natural world consisting of automatically generated islands, changing forests, and deep seas. That's right. We might have some generation going on in this game. That's going to create a very unique experience every time you boot it up. Now, exploration and interaction with all Pokemon. The 10th generation is expected to expand upon the freedom of exploration introduced in Scarlet and Violet. According to the plan, all Pokemon that appear will be rideable and playable, reinforcing the idea of direct immersion into the game's ecosystem. The text also highlights the use of procedural generation technologies, a method of automated environment creation, and the use of internal R&D research to represent biomes such as seas, forests, jungles, and ocean depths. So the central themes: infinity and survival. The game's central concept is defined by the terms infinity and survival, with a narrative proposal that involves fieldwork and discovery. The player will conduct field research with Pokemon, and the real story begins when it escapes from an island. The documentation also mentions the existence of a uniquely created legendary Pokemon, whose form and growth will be distinct for each player. The text suggests that this creature will have a customizable characteristics, representing a new type of legendary interaction in the franchise. Planning indicates that Pokemon Gen 10 will be the first main game in the series developed specifically for the new console, Switch 2, utilizing next generation hardware features. So, some summaries here. Item is information, internal title, Pocket Monsters Gen 10, codename Gaia, development period was August 22nd until the 25th, although it's been postponed a year. Estimated budget was 3 billion yen, sales target 15 million copies, platform Nintendo's new console, versions 2, winds and waves, that's what the supposedly going with here for names, main themes, infinity and survival, scenario, Asia inspired region, major focus on Indonesia, and features procedural world, changing islands, dynamic biomes, full interaction with Pokemon. Okay, so that in and of itself, this is already crazy. If we just sit back and think about what this could mean, this is wild. There's additional information out there, by the way. One thing I wanted to note before I move on to the next part here is they want this to be the best looking visual Pokemon game they've ever made in the mainline series. We'll see, right? We'll see what happens. It's hard to have a lot of faith in Game Freak to pull something like that off, but then we see them on a different project doing something extremely visually impressive. So we'll see, right? They've been at least working on this game for a handful of years. That should theoretically have given them time to maybe make a really great looking game, but we'll see. At one point in Legend ZA development, we learned this now from data mines and the Terra Leak and stuff. The textures on the side of buildings actually had like 3D like elements to it, like the windowsills and stuff that they got rid of at one point, probably for performance reasons on Switch 1. But yeah, just kind of showing that games do evolve over time. Here's a crazy thing though. Want to know when they're planning, like the internal documents, like when they plan things out in the future, when the hell is Gen 11 supposed to be arriving? Well, how about 2030? Yeah, 2030. What? Okay, so yeah, I guess if it releases next year, there'll be 4 years after that. In between, they'll have remakes, remasters, maybe another Legends game. Pretty cool. We're not done with the leaks, though. How about a roadmap for everything leading up to Generation 12 or 11, right? 11. My gosh, I'm getting confused with all the numbers. This is crazy. All of the projects Game Freak currently has in development. Wind and Waves for 2026 with DLC in 2027. Pokemon Legends Galar releasing in 2027 or beyond. That's pretty crazy. Pokemon Multi-Region Remake in 2028 or beyond. Oh, see, this is what they're planning before we even get to Generation 11. Pokopia is going to have some sort of DLC, and Pokemon Champions was originally supposed to be this year. We know it got pushed to next year. So, dude, this is crazy. The leaks are they're just infinite at this point. They just don't stop. Now, I did tell you that we have supposedly what is claimed to be actual screenshots in the Terra leak for Pokemon Gen 10. I don't want to show these for very long. And I really want to focus more on the image on the left than the right because there's a very staunch difference in the visuals from the left to the right. But let's just take a glance here. Yeah, you can see this is pretty visually impressive, especially for Pokemon. Whereas this over here, this kind of looks like standard fare, what we have today. Very subdued, muddy, blurry, etc. I don't know if this is supposed to be a comparison screenshot, but yeah, this one on the left here, that looks like the Pokemon game we've probably always wanted. Whether or not they're able to get to that visual fidelity, whether or not they pull this off, I have no idea. What I do know is apparently this stuff is all legit. It all comes from the Terra Leak, verified by multiple sources. So what do I think about all this? First off, it's absolutely insane that we have this much Pokemon information about games that haven't even been announced. But that's what happens when companies get hacked, right? They get hacked and things get taken pretty serious. And look, we all knew this information was going to come eventually. Obviously, Generation 10, I presume, was going to be revealed at Pokemon Day in February next year. So we're not that far away from when Gen 10 would probably be revealed anyways. Obviously, right now, the focus is Legends EA. Launches this week. So, yeah, pretty crazy. You know, we cover leaks like this. Obviously, these are old leaks from 2020. So this is not the same as like a game got, you know, put out in the internet, data mined and all that. And now this is from 2020. Plans have probably changed. Some of this stuff may not be true anymore. Some of the stuff might have different changes to it or ideas, or maybe they put this game in a completely different region. Again, so documents from 2020 when they're road mapping things. This is not, you know, finalized information. Just like you glance at this screenshot, that is not a finalized look. These are old looks at what they were already attempting to make. So Anyways, all right, guys. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I am Nathaniel Rebelchance from Nintendo Prime. Good luck out there. Obviously, if you're trying to avoid Legends EA spoilers, maybe don't dig too much into this stuff here, because this stuff is going to also be kind of buried within other leaks out there for Legends EA, like all the Mega Evolutions that are out there, a whole bunch of other stuff. If people don't want to know that, if you want to know that, I guess go look it up. Central Leaks on X is really spoiling everything they possibly can for the most part. But yeah. You guys let me know what you think about this down below. I am Nathaniel Rebelchance from Nintendo Prime. This story is actually evolving as I record this. I wouldn't be surprised in the 10 minutes or so it took me to record this video that even more leaks got out there for this Pokemon stuff in the future, because this is a developing story. And so we'll continue to cover it as bigger and bigger information comes out until we obviously reach a point where we feel like we've hit the satisfactory level of, okay, we probably don't need to talk about that. Like, say the ending of the game gets spoiled or something like that. We're not going to bring something like that up here. That being said, we will be talking about this greatly on our podcast this week on Wednesday, because we have to, right? Like, these are some pretty exciting developments if you think about what's going on with this leak. Like, some of the most exciting stuff we've seen for Pokemon in some time, not just a roadmap of like the games they're making, but dude, even like from a visual perspective, that screenshot, the one on the left in particular we showed earlier, that's promising. That's very, very promising if that's what they're shooting for on Switch 2. We'll have to wait and see, though. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I am Nathaniel Rebelchance from Nintendo Prime. I want to thank you so much for being here. Congrats to my Packers. Go Pack, go on your win. And tonight, the Brewers versus the Dodgers is squaring off. I'll be watching that, but you know what? That's not all I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be live streaming tonight as well. We'll talk more about Pokemon and probably even more information that's come out. We'll make sure we spoiler warn that section. I might even put like the word spoiler warning on screen or something. Well, something to signify that we're talking about spoilers. And then we'll move on that topic and talk about other stuff. But I'm excited, guys. It's pretty rare I get excited for Pokemon. And in the back of my mind, I'm going to be honest, in the back of my mind, I kept going, you know what? As much as like I don't like that companies get hacked and stuff, it would have been cool if this was for the Zelda team. Knowing all the future Zelda projects. So like for Pokemon fans, I understand being pretty excited about actually having a nice roadmap for the future to build your expectations around. I get how some people like that. Some people like to be completely surprised and shocked and awe, and you're probably not watching this video if you're one of those people, but I think it also can bring peace of mind to people knowing a general roadmap of when to expect things to come and what sort of things to expect. So, all right, guys, thank you for tuning in. I'll catch you in the next video.